Welcome, everybody, into another edition of the Big Ten Show. Yes, I know I don't have my patented V-neck shirt or collared shirt on. My closet is very limited as we're kind of basically renting this Airbnb while we're in the midst of moving, I should say, in the middle of moving, but that's okay. What am I wearing? My mountain whitewater. Okay, nice. So we actually lived in Colorado for a long time. We had a tradition with our kids. I not intend on bringing this up, but I guess we're going down this road. We'll have some fun. Whenever they turn 10, they got to go mountain whitewater rafting. And so that's become a big tradition. So I have 84 kids. We've gone like 84 years in a row, and it's been a blast. But anyways, welcome to another edition of the Big Ten Show. I'm Adam Carricker. Big announcement today. Okay. Rhett Lewis and I will officially be co-hosting the Big Ten Show.
Let's go
forward. How you feel about that, Rhett?
Pretty dang fired up, to be honest with you. And I'm excited to, I mean, look, I grew up in the Big Ten. I love the Big Ten. My dad went to Indiana. I went to Indiana. I followed the Big Ten for as long as I could remember. Football, basketball, most recently, baseball and softball, as my beloved Indiana Hoosiers were the only Big Ten team to be represented in both the softball and baseball postseason NCAA tournaments. Yeah, look, so I'm excited to be here with you, and our Hoosiers and Huskers will meet later this year in Bloomington. Look forward to that day and that week on the pod, but excited to be here with you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
At some point, not today, but at some point when it's appropriate, I want to pick your brain on Bobby Knight. That dude just intrigues me to no end. But we'll do that closer,
for sure.
Yeah, it's a basketball season for sure. So that's the big news here. Brett joined us a couple of weeks ago, had fun together, did a bit of a test run. I think last week we kind of knew, but making the official announcement today, we'll be co-hosting the Big Ten Show going forward. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Jacobson Seed, the Jacobson Seed Company. Check them out at jacobsonseed.com. They are your healthy hybrid advantage. Also, Bonzel Pool and Spa. Check them out at bonzelpool.com. If you're looking for and or need, or you think your life requires a swimming pool, hot tub, and or sauna, they are the place to go. If you have a swimming pool, hot tub, or sauna, and you like it taken care of, they do a phenomenal job. bonzelpool.com. Now, we are going to, last week we went through the top 9 for those who missed it. Okay, we ranked our top 9 quarterbacks, your list, my list. There was some crossover. There were some differences to be expected. We will get to the back 9. I mean that with respect.
I like it.
Not a golf reference. I suck at golf. But the back 9 here. But before we do that, Caitlin Clark. I've talked about her like no less than 4 million times on this show, and I'm rounding down. Okay, former Big Ten all-time great women's basketball player. Now making a little bit of news in the WNBA. Okay, so for those who don't know, all right, she's getting sort of a welcome to the WNBA moment by some of the other ladies, some of the other vets in the WNBA. The big news recently, all right, Chennedy Carter shoulder checked her during Saturday's game. That video has been everywhere. If you have not had a chance to see it, type it in. It'll come up in like a half a second. Okay, but the physicality with which she's being welcomed to the league has sparked a lot of debate. I guess you could use the word controversy if you want. But Rhett, I want to talk about this right off the top of the show. What are kind of your thoughts on this?
Well, let's be perfectly clear. From the outside looking in, and for anyone else who was watching, that was a cheap shot. That was a dirty play. And I think that was an attempt, at least it appeared an attempt to send a message. And I feel like that message was ill-informed. But here's the other part of it. That's not the first time that there's been a cheap shot in the WNBA. Mm-hmm. That's not the first time that there's been a cheap shot in any form, in any sport. It happens at every sport at every level. Now, the part of it that's ill-informed is that, you're attacking, if you will, a star. Right. And make no mistake, Caitlin Clark is a star in this game and in that league. And the issue here to me is that, I think that the increased attention is in part because she was the number 1 overall pick. I think if you'd have done that to Caleb Williams in his first game, for the Bears, you're going to be getting a similar, adverse reaction.
That's fair.
Now, the other piece of this here is that, Caitlin Clark is a big reason why there is more attention, why everyone is talking about this, certainly. Certainly not the only reason. We've seen increase in WNBA awareness and viewership and all this stuff over the last couple of years. Certainly major increase this year and well-deserved. And her star, if you will, is well-deserved from her career in Iowa. Now, I have no problem with Kennedy Carter or anybody else in the WNBA playing her tough, playing her hard, trying to assert dominance over her. That's the great thing about sport, is you get to impose your will on other people as long as you do it within the framework of the game, within the framework of the rules. That's obviously not what happened here. Should have been called a flagrant foul on the court. Wasn't. Now was corrected. Whatever. Besides the point. So if you are trying to send a message, that's okay. Do so within the framework of the rules, within the framework of the game, right? Don't make it. That's a non-basketball play right there. I think everyone, it's clear as day. The second piece of this thing here that I take issue with, every one of Caitlin Clark's teammates need to show that they have her back. And maybe they do, and maybe they've said it in private, but there needs to be a public show of support when your teammate gets attacked like that on the court. And I think that part of it, to me, I want to see more of. I want to see somebody from the Fever saying, you mess with Caitlin, you're messing with all of us. Same thing with Aaliyah Boston. You mess with Aaliyah Boston, you're messing with all of us. I didn't see that as much. I'd like to see that maybe be a rallying point now for this team. And the last part, Adam, my guess is Caitlin Clark wants to be done with this thing as soon as possible. She wants to play basketball. She wants to play with her teammates. She wants to help her team win. The last thing she wants to do is be caught up in the middle of this controversy. And I'm sure she understands, though, it's part of the deal that comes with being, a star that way, that comes into the league and the number 1 overall pick. People play her tough, but you gotta understand, and you don't go easy on her because, oh, she brought all this attention. Let's just let her shoot. No. That's not what it's about. But it's about understanding where you're crossing the line with being tough and then being dirty.
To me, I'll be honest with you, I got like 15 different angles I can attack. I want to attack this from. This may take more than a few minutes, but that's okay. Is this fair? I want to look at it from that way. Is it versus cheap? The coverage of the WNBA, okay, because Monica McNutt went McNuts on Stephen A. Smith the other day on ESPN First Take after they debated for like 45 minutes straight, which I've never seen them do without taking commercials. Okay, we can talk about it that way. You got Pat McAfee. My kids listen to this show, so I'll say it like this, and I think Pat's great, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay, but he called her a white bee, talking about Caitlin Clark, and he has apologized since. But when I heard that, I about fell out of my chair. I mean, even for Pat McAfee, that was astounding to me. Okay, so it's interesting because anytime you're a rookie, you're going to get welcome to your league. I had it. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I sure you had it.
I had it in the Big Ten for sure.
Yeah. Every level you played at, if you're a 9th grader going into high school, you're going to get some sort of a welcome to high school. Same thing with college. Same thing with if you go play at a pro level. It's no different. I've watched rookies be taped to goalposts when I was at the Rams, launched into the cold tub. Those were the smaller guys, not the bigger guys. Not going to launch them. And obviously you got to do the rookie show. Everyone hears about all that type of stuff. There's sometimes a little bit excess stuff. In practice, there were old linemen who would drive me a little bit longer and a little bit farther. And I didn't take it personally because I got it. I was the first round pick. I was, you're a rookie. You have higher expectations, all that stuff. Now, this play in particular, and it's not like Caitlin's been a saint on the court in the past. In fact, there's somebody even mentioned that maybe she was even talking trash to Kennedy before this. I don't know that that's been confirmed. Okay, this particular play, it was a cheap shot. It was. Should have been called a flagrant foul. Everything you've already said.
Yeah.
Okay, so part of it is this is part of welcoming a top rookie into the league. I get that. I'm as old school as they come. Old school, blue collar, in your face, smash mouth. I've said that a million times on my show. Okay, I was raised by a small town farm boy. Okay, and that's even though I'm a city slicker. I've spent 0 days in the country in my life outside of visiting family. That's how I was raised, and that's how I see it, and that's how I view it. Okay. I think for me, when Cheryl Swoops, legends, people like that were saying things about Caitlin Clark before she was ever drafted.
Yeah.
You knew this was coming. It was predetermined. There was a little something extra to it. You knew it was coming. You can't be surprised by this. To me, this is a little bit more than welcoming her to the WNBA. To me, and I don't know why this is the case, but certain folks have used the word jealousy, and somehow that became more than just an adjective. It became a derogatory thing. You're supposed to stay away. I don't understand. Maybe I'm missing something. There's some probably jealousy or resentment. Part of it is we've been here. We built this league. Now you're getting you're getting all the attention. That's one way to look at it, and there's some validity to that. The other way of looking at it is the WNBA has been a great league for a long time, but now you're getting more attention than you've ever had, probably combined. And I say that with all due respect, but it is what it is. And so while you should treat her not with kitty gloves, just like any other top pick rookie, at the same time, I think there should be a little bit of an appreciation. High tide raises all ships.
A competitive respect.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Like high tide raises all ships. More attention, more money, more revenue, and you're going to benefit from it.
Yeah.
I feel like they don't want her in the league, and maybe I'm wrong with that. And that would be the worst thing possible, because that's just some of the things that have been said and what I expected to happen. And then you see it happen. No shocker whatsoever. So I hope it's simply, hey, rookie, welcome to the league. I hope it's not, we don't really want you here because you're getting the attention that we think we should have had for years. If that's what it is, then that's a much deeper problem. Yeah. And I think, I don't want to say
that's the ill-informed messaging that I was referring to, right?
Yeah, I don't want to say like a bubble-like mentality, but welcome the rest of the world that she's helping to bring. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
I think you kind of covered a lot of the bases here. Cheap shot, yes. Send a message, probably a big piece of that. Again, ill-informed message, right? And I think I'd like to see some support visibly towards her from her teammates, you know, because like that happens to you in a game, somebody's going to get your back, right? And let's see more of that. Now I'm not saying he's got to come to, swinging, throwing punches and stuff. No. There's a way to support your teammates the right way, right? And I think we see that in a lot of sports. I think that's something that you'll probably see moving forward. But I again, to put it kind of simply here, play tough, play her physically fine, but do it within the framework of the game. That's kind of the only thing we can ask for here.
So coming to your teammates, have aid or having their back. I have the vision of a quarterback maybe getting hit late. Boom, here comes the whole freaking O-line over there.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't mean it's all of a sudden a gigantic melee. I mean, you don't want that, but they're there to have his back.
Yes.
I don't see any of her teammates doing that in the game, in the press conferences, in the media, publicly. And I remember this was before the NCAA tournament ever started. It might have been before the Big Ten tournament even started, and Iowa ended up winning the championship. I said, she's a generational talent, but she needs to go to the right locker room, because otherwise there's going to be, because this is right after
animosity.
It said some of the things. She needs to go to the right locker room, and I'm starting to wonder if she was drafted to the right locker room or not. Is that a fair thing to wonder?
It is. I will say that team has been put through the ringer more so than any other team in WNBA history. 11 games in 20 days. It's like incredible, right? The amount that they have played. I think that they need to take a breath, kind of reassess where they're at. Obviously, it has not been a very successful season, but let's remember, Peyton Manning threw about 100 interceptions his first year in the league as a number 1 overall pick. Ended up being pretty damn good. Caitlin has not been extraordinary yet in the WNBA, even though, at some point she's been leading, all rookie scorers and all that stuff. There's going to be better days for Caitlin and for the Fever, and I'm excited to continue to watch it.
So you actually make a great point. I took a screenshot this morning, if I can find it. This was put out by the Big Ten Network. I'm going to read this, okay? Yeah. Caitlin Clark, WNBA Rookie of the Month, 17.6 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, 6.6 assists per game. That's the month of May. Right. So it's not like she's playing poorly, okay?
No, but she's not averaging 35 like she was in Iowa, right?
I'm sorry she's not Michael Jordan yet. She'll get there, okay? Maybe, That's kind of the expectation. Okay, and I don't know if I said this earlier, but just to clarify, Pat McAfee did apologize for the comments. Okay, all right. The other part I wanted to talk about was Monica McNutt leaves Stephen A. speechless in the Caitlin Clark debate with criticism of WNBA coverage. Basically, and I've seen this clip, oh my gosh, like 100 times. Okay, by the way, Peyton Manning did say that's the one record he'd be happy if somebody broke, because
that's right, the interception record.
The interception. She's like, somebody else could take that off my plate if they'd like. But I've seen this clip. And basically, Stephen A. is talking about how it's harder to talk about women's sports, in his opinion, because you have to choose your words more carefully. With men, they just kind of say whatever they want and they rip them to shreds, and it's almost like the men aren't even human beings. And I've never felt sorry for the men. You've been there, I've been there. It's part of the gig. It's part of the job. Okay. I always said just don't make it personal. If you don't make it personal, it's all It's all fair game to me.
Yeah.
Okay, but he said when it comes to women, in his opinion, you got to be much more careful. He didn't use the word delicate, but he was frustrated. He resented how much he felt like he had to protect the words when he was talking about women. So that's the first part I wanted to bring up. And that's not the main part, just something that he brought up. But Monica McNutt in response, and he said, nobody talks about WNBA more than First Take. And Monica McNutt really did not agree with that. She basically said, with your platform, you could have been talking about the WNBA for years and you haven't been. And he kind of was like, wow, just like left speechless.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I think I don't know how much good it does to be like, well, you could have been doing more 3 years. We can't change that. What we can do right now is, what we feel is the right thing to do, and to talk about the sports and the players that have earned that type of respect and that type of coverage. And there's no question the WNBA has. There's no question Caitlin Clark has. There's no question Angel Reese has. So look, it's a debate show. I don't know that debating on a debate show, how much a certain debate show debates about a certain topic is really compelling television to me. Now, was it interesting to see the reactions? Yes. But that's kind of where it stops for me.
For me, to address both those parts, like how women's sports are talked about, and then the second part, how much they're talked about. Okay, I'll actually address the last part first. For me, I equate it to if I'm a DJ. All right, am I going to play the hit songs, or am I going to try to play everybody's songs?
Right.
I'm going to play the hit songs. I'm going to play what people want to listen to. I'm not going to be a DJ very long. I've got 5 daughters who've all loved basketball.
Sure.
If they end up playing I'm as invested in the WNBA as any dad right now. Okay. And I got daughters who freaking love basketball. Okay. And I'm not saying they will or won't play, but my point is I can be as invested as anybody. But if the interest isn't there in a general sense, I'm not going to play your song. So Stephen A. Smith needs to talk about what the hot button topics are. Like when you and I come on here, let's be honest, we're going to talk more about Ohio State and Michigan. Okay, probably then no disrespect. I don't know. I'm going to pick 2 schools, Purdue or something like that. And if they have a great season, we'll talk about them. That's just how it works. So that was my one thought. And the other thought is I thought it was interesting that Stephen A. they were talking about the WNBA, and then all of a sudden he was being told how to talk about it. So you need to talk about us more, and here's how you talk about us. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. I know you're not enjoying this topic. To me, it was just kind of interesting to me. Because I tend to guard my words when it comes to women a little bit more because I was taught to respect them and treat them with respect. Okay.
Rightly so.
But if you want to be talked about more, the interest has to be there. Just like we are probably going to talk about football more than any other sport here. Okay. We're former football players, but if another sport arises and gets that interest, we'll talk about it. Yeah. But if we're going to talk about it more, don't all of a sudden then tell us how to talk about it, because then the talking about it's probably going to go down. So anyway,
I get that point too. Yeah.
All right. Good with that topic?
Yep.
Okay. All right. My friend, the back 9. Well, let's go through our top 9 first. You want to go through your top 9?
Sure. Yeah. I'll recap where we were at. Quarterbacks in the Big Ten, as we assume. There could be some change, right? Fall camp, there's still some positions and some pecking orders that are yet to be firmly established or confirmed by a school. So this is how I kind of see it at this point. We both agreed. Dylan Gabriel, Oregon, entering as the top quarterback in the conference, perhaps the country this year. We shall see. Will Rogers from Washington was my number 2. Will Howard from Ohio State was my number 3. Interesting. All 3 of those guys will be first-year players at their institutions after transferring in. Number 4, homegrown. Penn State, Drew Aller is my number 4. Curtis Rourke, another transfer in from the MAC and the University of Ohio, or Ohio University, moving to Indiana. Got him there at number 5. Hudson Card from Purdue, back for his second season with Ryan Walters, is my number 6. Miller Moss, if he ends up taking the reins full-time for Lincoln Riley after an incredible bowl performance for the Trojans this past season, is my number 7. Caden McNamara, whose first season at Iowa was robbed after an ACL injury, ended his season early. He is my number 8 quarterback. And then Aiden Childs is my number 9 quarterback, following Jonathan Smith from Oregon State to Michigan State. That's how I got him 1 through 9.
All right. So I'm just going to be fully honest with you. I cannot find my list from last week. So I'm going to try to remember as much as I can here. Dylan Gabriel.
Yep.
All right. And like you said, he may be the top quarterback in the entire country. Probably either him or Beck out of Georgia. Okay.
Yep.
All right. No, so the list I can see here is 3 Drew Aller, 4 Miller Moss.
Yep.
So 2 must have been Will Howard.
It was.
Okay,
Yep.
out of Ohio State. And I mentioned that, yeah, he's a skilled, talented guy, but it's almost like, hey, you're coming here with skill and talent, but you got a ton of it around you. Just don't screw it up. So a lot of that is, the talent around him as well.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Man, do you remember my number 5? 6 was Dylan Raiola.
Dylan Raiola was 6. I think your number 5 was Miller Moss. Or did you already have him there?
I had him at 4.
4. Okay.
I focused so much on our next 9 quarterbacks. I didn't even think to find my list from last week.
Rodgers? Was it Rodgers from Washington?
Yes.
There you go.
That you got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Rodgers at 5, Raiola at 6. All right. Tyler Van Dyke from Wisconsin at 7.
Yep.
I know I had Aiden Childs at 9. Do you remember 8? I'm trying to
8. Alex Orji.
Yes.
There you
All
go.
right. There you go. Nothing like having a co-host to help me remember my list.
Hey, that's what I'm here
very
for.
much.
It's teamwork, baby.
I appreciate it.
Back.
Dude, I focused so much on the next 9.
Yeah.
And then I was like, let's recap it. I'm like, oh crap,
Wait,
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Like I remember most of it, but not all of
Right.
it. All right. So let's go to Aiden. We both had Aiden Childs at 9. Okay.
That's right.
Who do you have 10th?
So at 10, I had Tyler Van Dyke from Wisconsin, who obviously transferred in from Miami. And you talked a little bit about him. He's got was a highly recruited kid going to Miami. I think he's got some real talent. I think that there's a lot about the experience at Miami that might have sheltered that talent a little bit, whether that was a shaken confidence, whether that was, maybe not a perfect scheme fit there in Miami. But I think this is going to be really interesting at Wisconsin, because last year it did not feel like this offense truly found rhythm in Phil Longo's, spread it out type of air raid offense. It felt like a weird fit initially, right? Going to Wisconsin, where they put offensive linemen into the league, year after year after year, running backs into the league year after year after year. They had a 6'3", 250-pound running back in Braylon Allen that got drafted this year, but that had come into last season, and everyone was like, how is this going to work with Braylon Allen in a dominant run game, a physical run game? Now, look, air raid will run the football. Let's make no mistake about it, right? You can go back to Mike Leach's days. He loved to run the football too, but it's just done a different way, and it never felt like they had the person. I was like, square peg, round hole, or round peg, square. One of the two. Whatever. Yep. You get the analogy there.
It wasn't working.
Yeah. So this, I feel like Tyler Van Dyke, bringing him in here for a real chance to run this system, I think has the opportunity for a better fit. I've talked to Tyler. I think he's a very prideful guy. I think he is a very competitive dude. And I'm really interested to see like the full scope of his talent come to play here at Wisconsin. So he is my number 10.
All right, at 10, I have a guy I believe you listed him last week, Curtis Rourke. Okay,
that's right.
Indiana.
Yep.
I love guys like this. Okay, guys who come from a smaller school or maybe a little bit overlooked, undervalued, however you want to phrase it, getting a chance to play in the big time. Now, this is a guy coming out of high school, again, 2-star recruit, last 5 years spent at Ohio, starter is the last 3 years. It's a former MAC Offensive Player of the Year. He's getting his chance to play with the big boys, and this is his opportunity to prove himself, okay, in a Power 4, really the big two, one of the big two leagues, and also help his own NFL stock as well. This is a guy that I'm very intrigued to see how he can do playing at this level. And I'm curious to see, again, the high tide raises all ships and things of that nature, the talent around him, how much that does or doesn't help him when they face some of these other really highly touted, talented Big Ten teams. Who you got next?
Yeah, at 11, I have Ethan Garbers from UCLA. So Garbers and Dante Moore, a true freshman, again, a 5-star quarterback there at UCLA, both started last year. Was more Dante Moore's job. And then when it became clear that he was leaving and all the things that had kind of transpired at UCLA, Ethan Garbers comes into the season, has a terrific bowl game, kind of like Miller Moss, but not quite the sexy numbers that Moss put up there. Still good numbers, but Garbers, I think has a real opportunity now without Dante Moore, over his shoulder or without being behind Dante Moore. He could take the reins here with Deshaun Foster and company as they kind of try to reshape the image of UCLA moving forward. I think Garbers has a real shot to build off that Boise State Bowl win and propel this offense and take the reins and really kind of take this offense and make it his own and move forward. So I think he's got an opportunity here to be a top half of the conference quarterback. I don't have him in the top half right now, but I think he's got that ability. And if everything kind of jives together in this first year, which is challenging, right? For a first-time head coach at a big-time school like this in a big-time conference, it's going to be challenged, but I think he's got the skill set to have an opportunity to work his way up.
I'm curious about your thoughts before I get into my number 11 quarterback. Deshaun Foster, UCLA legend, great running back, NFL player. He's never been an offensive coordinator. Like, I'm curious how challenging you think it's going to be going from a running backs coach, never having called plays, and now you're in charge of an entire program. And I'm not saying he can't be successful. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm very curious to see how this plays out, that he's got all the tools out there at UCLA. For me, it felt like, and I hope I'm proven wrong, I've always liked UCLA more than USC. I grew up with the McNowns and going to the Rose Bowl and playing Wisconsin like every freaking year in the Rose Bowl, then the Sun Bowl one year. So I grew up liking UCLA more than USC. But it felt a little bit too much like a homegrown hire. But what are your thoughts on Deshaun Foster in his first year as a head coach, never having called plays or even been a coordinator?
Yeah, and look, it was late in the process when it happened too, right? There was reports that Chip Kelly was getting fired, then he wasn't fired, then he did end up leaving to take the job as the offensive coordinator for his good buddy Ryan Day at Ohio State. So I think, were they left in a lurch a little bit? Well, they may have been planning for this moment, for longer than the job was open, but I think Deshaun Foster fits a bill as a leader of men, as a guy who can command respect in the locker room, that has earned respect in the locker room as a UCLA legend, as a guy who's done it before at that institution, who's done it before in the league at a high level. I know my good buddy Maurice Jones-Drew, who I work with at NFL Network, really respects Deshaun Foster. They got to get their NIL situation together. They've got to figure out a way to get resources back into that program in a way in which competes with the rest of the conference. I think if they do that, Deshaun Watson's going to be armed to do a better job. I think at this point, it's going to be an uphill battle this year, as it often is with first-time head coaches, right? But I don't think the lack of experience as a coordinator is going to prohibit him from being a good head coach. I think you look at, guys like, some of the great ones at the NFL level. Look at what John Harbaugh's done. Was never, he was a special teams coordinator, but he was never really calling plays as an offensive or defensive coordinator, at the league level before, and has been one of the most consistent winners in the National Football League and is a leader of men. And if you can prove to do that well, you're gonna be in a position to succeed. Now, the next thing he's got to do is he's got to recruit his butt off, right? He's got to be a master of the living room. Without question. And I think, hopefully the coaches that he has hired, the coaching staff that he has hired, is equipped to help him navigate some of the potential pitfalls that a first-time head coach can fall into. And if he's got a good support structure around him, I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier. UCLA has all the tools. Now, I'm going to go to something you said. They have to prioritize their maximizing their tools and resources into football, which right now they just have not done up to this point. And if I'm UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon, I should be like, I'm recruiting against each other, but now I'm recruiting against Cal and Stanford and all these schools that I've been recruiting against for years. But if I walk into a recruit's living room and I can say, hey, you can play in the Big Ten, or you can go play on the other side of the country. I mean, what's more appealing? Plus, I've got the bigger brand. Like, those four schools should be able to recruit at a level as high or higher than they've ever had, because that's a gigantic advantage. And, even Arizona State, they don't have quite the brands, but even going to the Big 12, that is not as appealing as the Big 10. So, okay, my number 11 quarterback, there's so many guys on this list that were so highly touted, very talented guys. Hudson Card. Okay. By the way, not a transfer. One of the few transfers. Just want to point that out.
Not this year.
Yeah, not this year. Yes.
Right.
Thank you. 4-star recruit, number 2 quarterback in the 2020 recruiting class. All right. This is a guy in 11 games last year, 215 of 36, 215 of 365 passing. Easy for me to say. 2,387 yards, 6.5 yards per attempt, 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Ran the ball 93 times for 203 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. He can do some things with his legs. Purdue had a rough year last year, first year head coach. Okay. Yep. As you mentioned, that's a little bit challenging at times. Okay. Purdue's offense was not good last year. Okay. He's very talented. The biggest thing with him is consistency. How consistent can he be this year? That's going to be the biggest difference maker for him and Purdue's offense as a whole. All right, my man, who you got next?
Yeah, number 12, I'm going with Max Brosmer from Minnesota. Transfers in from New Hampshire, where he led the FCS in passing yards in 2023, was top 10 in 2022. He's had a terrifically productive last 2 seasons at New Hampshire and now making the jump, right? So does the production translate? That's the big question. The one thing that is clear is that he has earned the respect of his teammates. He was named a captain like halfway into spring ball. Okay. And he was actually with Minnesota this was one of the first quarterback transfers to kind of hit and to come out of the portal when the portal opened. Like Max Brosmer went to Minnesota, like in the blink of an eye, right? Snapped his fingers, he was there, which then led Ethan Kaliakmanis, who's later on my list, to move out of Minnesota. So he saw the writing on the wall. Brosmer comes in, he has immediately assumed the role of, program leader of, hey, even if I haven't been named the starting quarterback, I am approaching this thing like QB1. He took all the receivers and running backs and tight ends with him to go to his family's lake house in Georgia this summer. That's like stuff you hear like NFL quarterbacks doing, right? Yep. And so you see this leadership become a trend, right? So he is not a fish out of water in that respect. Now, when the lights are shining, when guys like you are coming around the edge to try to get after him, here is he going to hold up that way in a hostile environment and a much tougher competition than he faced at the FCS level? That remains to be seen, but the potential for that production is there. We have seen it at a lower level. Does it translate? Brosmer 12.
We agree completely. 12, Max Brosmer, Minnesota. I mean, I have a lot of the same notes as you just shared. We got him listed at the same exact spot. Okay, New Hampshire transfer. I love pointing out when guys are like 1 or 2 stars and then they go on to do really good things. I mean, my brother-in-law is a walk-on. Some of my best friends from when I played in college to this day are walk-ons. I just have a special spot in my heart for guys who are a little bit overlooked, however you might, and then you might feel about that, but then end up doing great things. Okay. So like you mentioned, led the football championship subdivision in passing yards. And I'm curious to see what he can do at the Big Ten level. Minnesota, I mean, row the boat. Okay. All that
boring offense.
Yeah, all that good stuff, but they need to be able to execute the forward pass just a little bit better. Yeah. Teams like Nebraska, teams like Minnesota, Wisconsin's trying to get there as well.
Iowa.
Yes. Iowa's on that whole nother level. Way too many Big Ten teams that come to that brain. That come way easy to the brain when you're like, they got to complete the forward pass a little bit better. All right, man. So I'm not going to add a whole lot more because you already touched on a lot of it.
Yeah.
Who you got next?
13, I'm going with Luke Altmaier from Illinois. Transferred in last year from Ole Miss and, won that starting job there at Illinois. Played well, won some big games early with some late kind of heroics. Toledo was a much better team than I think people nationally gave them credit for. Obviously, one of their cornerbacks, Quinion Mitchell, was drafted in the first round by the Philadelphia Eagles. And Luke Altmaier engineered a last-second field goal drive, beat them, did the same thing, I believe, against Minnesota, Illinois did. But he started 9 games and got injured late in the season. And the numbers in the air were pretty pedestrian for Illinois, as they kind of have been each year for any quarterback that's played for Brett Bielema. Right, you want to go back to Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, right, the New York Giants. Like was not all that dynamic. Same thing the year before. Art Sitkowski and Brandon Peters. Those guys, they have not had that type of like aerial assault through on that side of the ball. It's been more of a ground game. And so look, in 9 games he threw for 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns. He's got some athleticism to him too. He can run the football, ran for nearly 300. But the weird thing is he goes out of the lineup. Next guy comes in, I believe it's a transfer from Ball State, and lit my alma mater up. And I was there to watch it for 500 yards through the air. And you're like, whoa. You're like, where did this come from? And is that a part of the offense? It was Altmaier's skill set just holding that part of the offense back. Well, I think that's what we start to find out this year with Illinois. So as it stands now, I got him because he is a bona fide product in the Big Ten, has won games. I got him at 13.
All right. I'm going to call him your guy out of sarcasm. I got your guy, Cade McNamara, at 13.
Okay.
All right. Worst offense in the country last year. I read one article where they said the worst offensive coordinator in recent memory. I was like, wow, that's a little harsh.
Yeah.
Okay, but he got hurt. Okay, so he didn't have a full season. I believe he only played about 5 games. But in those 5 games, barely completed over 50% of his passes, 46 of 90 passing, 505 yards, 5.6 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He didn't look great. I'm curious to see what Iowa can do in a new offense, new offensive coordinator. Okay, some people are still a believer in Cade McNamara. This is a guy with 4-star recruit, number 7 quarterback in the 2019 class, went to Michigan, as we know, transferred to Iowa. Okay, so the question is, what's the new offense look like? I'm assuming Cade's going to be 100% by the time the season rolls around. What can he do? And I've argued that he has the most to prove. Okay, highly touted. You transfer from Michigan. The offense struggles. You get hurt. So to me, this is kind of his year to prove what he can do. If Iowa can score points at all on offense, they got another great defense, always disciplined, going to take care of the ball, going to win the turnover penalty battle 99 times out of 100. Okay, solid on special teams. To me, they can win anywhere from 7 games to like 10, possibly, and it kind of hinges on what he does. And to me, he's the player in the Big Ten I feel has the most to prove this year, and I'm curious to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think that's those are all good thoughts. I think Iowa, makes a habit of being in contention to win 10 games. And I think defense and special teams will, of course, be there for them, as it generally always is. And can the offense just do more, right? Because then that makes them a more dangerous team. All right, at number 14, I'm going with Ethan Kaliakmanis. Transferred this year into Rutgers. So transferring within the Big Ten, going to Rutgers from Minnesota. He is familiar with Kirk Shiraka, who is the new offensive coordinator, is the returning offensive coordinator now for Greg Schiano there at Rutgers, had been at Minnesota. Look, I think if Greg Schiano could trot out there in 9-on-7 on game days, he would. I think he loves to run the football. He wants to chop wood. He wants to, pound, ground and pound all day long. And now, was that at all a symptom of a limited skill set from their departing quarterback, Gavin Wimsatt? Maybe. And maybe, the fact that he wasn't as prolific a passer forced them to commit to the run game even more. Does Kaliakmanis, who PJ Fleck once said is one of the most talented quarterbacks he's ever seen, but it never quite transpired this last year through the air for Minnesota's offense. So now as he moves to this Kirk Shiraka offense there in Piscataway, New Jersey, is it a better scheme fit? Does he thrive more off this play action? Look, they ran the ball a ton at Minnesota too, so it does feel kind of similar here, very congruent kind of move. But for me, with Kaliakmanis, I'm hoping it's a better fit for him, hoping it's a better fit for, Rutgers. And look, I think this is probably where their quarterback is going to end up the way that they want to run offense. Like, I just think you're going to see a top half of the conference quarterback, because they're not going to be afforded the opportunity to put up the numbers that warrant that type of distinction.
Next on my list, I've got Luke Altmaier, very similar to you, Illinois quarterback. All right, so this is a guy, another 4-star guy, another guy with a lot of talent. Okay, kind of a so-so season. To me, he did some good things. You could even argue he was starting to trend upwards a little bit right before the season-ending injury, unfortunately. I remember watching a few Illinois games, and then when Nebraska was getting ready to play him, I said, just wait for him to turn the ball over because he's going to. And then he ended up turning the ball over like 3 or 4 times that night. When you have 13 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and you didn't even play double-digit games, you've got to take care of the ball better. It doesn't matter what else you do. If he doesn't take care of the ball better this year, this is high on the list for him, okay? He has the potential to be higher, but if he's going to have a 13 passing touchdowns to 10 interception ratio again this upcoming season, then he's going to be lower on the list after this season is over. So to him, it's the talent. But to me, it's about taking care of the football. And if he can do that, this is an Illinois team that a couple years ago there was a lot of positivity and a lot of high hopes for. Last year was a little bit of a letdown. This is an Illinois team that I think this is a pivotal year. They're going to go one way or the other, just like their quarterback's going to go one way or the other when it comes to taking care of the ball. And I think the two are going to overlap and be correlated an awful lot. All right, who you got next?
15, I've got another transfer, which should come as no surprise to folks that follow Northwestern football. They have had a new transfer quarterback each year since 2019. From 2019 through 2024, Mike Wright is the latest in that line of transfer quarterbacks, comes in from Mississippi State by way of Vanderbilt. I don't know. I don't know that we've seen enough of Mike Wright to know that he is going to be the guy to lead Northwestern, back to another bowl game opportunity. The thing that we love is the way that they persevered through some serious adversity as a team last year. Started a couple of different quarterbacks, but their guy, Ben Bryant, is now gone. So, does Mike Wright take the reins? Does he take control? Is he that guy that's going to lead this program with their new kind of makeshift lakeside stadium while Ryan Field got torn down and they're waiting to build the new stadium and all? There's a lot, again, that's kind of going against Northwestern. In addition to the fact, the schedule is always a gauntlet for teams in that realm like Northwestern is. Mm-hmm. Can they run that gauntlet? Can they find a way to win, 3, 4 Big Ten games, 5 Big Ten games, get back to bowl eligibility? I think at some point, though, they've got to stop the carousel. They've got to find a homegrown dude that they can win with for more than one season, because that's how you do this, right? That's how you ride the roller coaster. Now, it hit on the upswing last time, but is this now, are we going to see the down, right? Are we going to see the free fall? I don't think that's the case. I think that they've done a good job as a program trying to reestablish some things there, but I think the jury's still out on what Mike Wright is going to bring to Northwestern from a quarterback spot.
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't like the rent a quarterback approach that Northwestern and Notre Dame take every year, or at least the past couple of years?
If it's an elite dude, it's hard to say no, right? But yep. I think at some point you've got to grow. The program has to grow with a quarterback.
I agree. All right, so next on my list, Ethan Garbers. So I feel like a lot of, especially the last half of this list, again, you look at Ethan Garbers.
Go anywhere.
Yeah, this is a guy, number 4 quarterback in the entire country when he came out in 2020. It's all these talented guys, and this is going to be his 5th year. 2025, he came out in 2020. A lot of talented guys who've been around a while, and this is kind of they just kind of go from one team to the next, and hopefully they found their home, their landing spot. They can show what they can do. They can raise their NFL stock. They can help encourage their current college teams at the moment in time. For me, he didn't start last year, until Chip Kelly benched star freshman Dante Moore midway through the season. And then he did some decent things down the road, but now it's his chance and his time to shine, to show and see what he can do. It's hard for me to go beyond any of that because I don't exactly know what things are going to look like, under Deshaun Foster just yet. So this is a guy that I could see jumping way up or not on this list, with just kind of anticipating a rough first year for Deshaun Foster until they kind of get things rolling. I kind of felt like 15 was a fair spot for him, but this is a guy that could go either way drastically, in my opinion.
Yep. I think that's fair. At 16, I went with a guy you had, I believe, at number 6 on your list, which will not endear me to the folks that receive your fantastic newsletter.
Boo this man! Boo this man! No,
yes, that love their Nebraska Cornhuskers like you do. And it's simply because we have not yet seen him take a snap. Mm-hmm. And since he is a true freshman quarterback that we all expect to be the starting quarterback for Matt Rule in Nebraska this year, I still have Dylan Raiola down at 16 because I have prioritized production over potential. He could be number 1. Right? He could be the top quarterback on this list, but I went with a proven commodity, and I placed the priority on proven commodities. At this point, he's not, but the biggest question is the elite talent ready? And we went into depth on Raiola on the last podcast. If you missed that, go ahead and check that out in our episode list. But I've got Raiola 16 ready to make a move up if things go well.
This is the single most, and I don't take this for what I mean, volatile player on this entire list, because he could, like you said, 1 to 18 because he's a true freshman.
Yes.
I mean, this is the biggest question mark on this entire list. So it's interesting because I think I mentioned this last week. I kind of went with what's around him, what's the schedule, and then the quarterback as well also. So I think that's why I had him a little bit higher. But this is the biggest difference between your list and mine. I had him 6, you had him 16. He could land anywhere in between. So this will be fun to watch. All right, 8th thing, Kelly McManus. All right, Minnesota transfer to Rutgers. You just talked about him. Okay, so talent's off the charts. He was not good last year.
No.
I don't know how else to put it. In fact, here's all I wrote in my notes. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but this is all I wrote. Can you see? Oh, by the way, I once got a C in handwriting. Now you can see why.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
I wrote
not that good.
That's what I wrote. I mean, the talent is off the charts, and I don't know what more to add to what you said earlier. It's very similar. Minnesota to Rutgers. By the way, sidebar, Rutgers is a team to watch out for this year. People are not talking about them enough. And I don't know that they're going to be like in the Big Ten championship game, but Greg Schiano's done it once there before. He's doing it again. They have a veteran-laden squad. They have a talented quarterback. If they can just get him to be any sort of consistent, take care of the ball at all, they don't have a brutal schedule. This is a team that could surprise people. Okay, again, I'm not saying Big Ten championship game. You never know. But I'm saying this is a team that could be 8, 9, 10 wins possibly. He once had Rutgers ranked number 2 in the country, if anybody remembers that, about 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. So anyways, I'm curious to see what Ethan can do this year. The talent's there. The play last year was not. Greg Schiano's a really good football coach.
Damn good.
Hopefully he can help him out. All right, who you got next?
Quick, because you brought it up with Kelly McManus, it made me think Minnesota. I said Luke Altmaier engineered a game-winning drive against Minnesota. He actually got hurt against Minnesota. The game-winning drive is against Maryland. Got my M's mixed up. Number 17, Alex Orji. Is he the starter? Kind of the same way I felt about Mike Wright in Northwestern. Is Mike Wright the starter? Is Brendan Sullivan the starter? Both transfers. Like, I don't know. It seems like, he's got the pedigree Orji does. He played a little bit last year, mostly as a runner, almost exclusively as a runner. And I'm going to tell you right now, after they beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl, I was down in the field there in Pasadena. I walked next to Alex Orji and I was like, this dude could be a tight end. Like his lower half is so incredibly, built and mature, muscularly, for a young player. I was like, God dang, no wonder they were trying to give him the ball as a runner, because he can truck some dudes. Now, is he a one-trick pony? Can they count on him as a passer? Do they need to count on him as a passer? I just think there's a lot of questions here. Obviously, they're replacing a ton of skill position talent. Top 2 receivers gone, top running back gone, one of their top tight ends gone, replacing the entire offensive line. Is he the guy that you can put all that weight of the replacements, not to mention replacing the head coach, on his shoulders? Remains to be seen. That's why I got him down there at 17.
Also a $1 million strength coach, which you don't hear about or see about every day.
That's right.
So number 17, I have Brendan Sullivan. You just talked about him at Northwestern. Okay. My notes I wrote here may have a rough year, but Northwestern surprised us last year.
That's right.
There were zero expectations for Northwestern last year with everything that happened with Pat Fitzgerald right before the season. The year before, they won 1 game. Then all of a sudden they go 7-5. Then they beat Utah in the bowl game, go 8-5. So who knows? But I'm kind of with you. They need to find more consistency. It's like if you constantly have a new head coach, it's hard to build anything. If you constantly have a rent-a-quarterback approach every year, and I don't think it's by Northwestern's choice. I think Notre Dame could be more picky with their rent-a-quarterback approach. They could get a guy for more than 1 year at a time. Northwestern, I don't know that it's quite as much their choice. But until you get that consistency and you're able to get your whole program a little bit more on stable footing, okay, I just think it's going to be a bit of a rough year for him. But to be clear, I hope I'm wrong. I loved watching Northwestern last year. I may have had more fun watching them than any other team in the country because they played so above their heads.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I thought it was awesome. All right. Who's last? Who's next on your list?
Yes. Last on the list, Maryland. Is it Billy Edwards? Is it MJ Morris? Morris, who comes in obviously with a higher cachet from North Carolina State, has been on the college football scene, has been there, has been in some game action. So, does he win that job? But Billy Edwards, I would tell you, don't count him out. And I actually have his name in here as the guy because he's been with Mike Locksley. He has played in relief of Talia Tagovailoa, who is now gone. I think he's a gamer. I think he's got some athleticism that catches people off guard. I think he's got some real competitiveness, but it's really only been in limited action. Do you see that come to fruition fully as a starting quarterback for 12 games and, hopefully in Maryland's case, beyond? That's, again, a huge unknown, very limited, sample size here. So, again, that's why and you want to talk about the team with the biggest free fall in terms of quarterback. I'd have had Talia Tagovailoa 2 on my list last year. 2, right, for Maryland. And he was fantastic. And so now I've got, Maryland's quarterback situation right now all the way at the bottom. Again, it's just based off, we don't know who their starter is going to be, and we don't know what they're going to look like for a full 12-game season.
So, as you mentioned, Edwards has really big shoes to fill. Longtime Maryland quarterback Talia Tagovailoa finished. He's done. Okay, the Big Ten's leading passer. Now, he could run, as you mentioned. He's just outright not great at passing at this point, at least in what we've seen in very limited action. 8 games last year, only attempted 30 passes, completed 10. Okay, so it's interesting because when I look at, I'm going to take a random little sidebar. If I'm Rutgers and I'm Maryland, there's no 2 teams more excited about getting rid of divisions than those 2 teams. You don't have to play Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan every year. So immediately I'm feel like, how often could those 2 teams have competed, especially Maryland, if they were in the Big Ten West for years? Okay, so immediately they got to be more excited about this season. The drawback is, can we complete a forward pass? Like we've mentioned previously about some other schools. I'm with you. I do think he's a gamer. He can run. I think he can make plays. I think he's going to be that guy that kind of inspires his teammates through his will, okay, and his energy, effort, all that good stuff. But you got to be able to throw the ball just a little bit more than he's shown to this point anyways. And again, I hope he's much improved over the offseason.
Yeah. So there we go. 1 through 18. Just I'll give you a quick recap on my final 9. Tyler Van Dyke at 10 from Wisconsin. Ethan Garbers, UCLA at 11. Max Brosmer, Minnesota at 12. Altmaier at Illinois, 13. Ethan Kelly McManus, 14. At Rutgers, Mike Wright, Brennan Sullivan, whoever you want to put in there, 15 for Northwestern. 16 is Dylan Raiola at Nebraska. 17, Alex Orji from Michigan. And 18, Maryland, Billy Edwards or MJ Morris. There we have it.
All right, my number 10, Curtis Rourke, Indiana. Number 11, Hudson Card. Okay. Purdue, Max Brosner, Minnesota. Cade McNamara, Iowa. Luke Altmaier, Illinois. Ethan Garbers, UCLA. 16 is Ethan Kelly McManus, Minnesota. 17 is Brendan Sullivan, Northwestern. 18, we assume, Billy Edwards Jr. at Maryland. Last thing, our biggest discrepancies. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's what we're going to roll with. All right, Dylan Raiola. All right, you had him at 16. I had him at 6. I think the other one was Cade McNamara. I had him 13. You have him 8?
I had 8. Yeah, right? And then
wasn't there one more?
I was higher on my alma mater's quarterback, Curtis Rourke, at 5. I think you had Curtis at 10. So, 10. 5-spot difference. But yeah, and I think, look, we approached this a couple of different ways too, and you really took into account schedule, talent around, the whole thing. I was looking at production mostly at this level, right at the Big Ten level, and just in Power 5, in FBS, all that stuff kind of going into. So I think it's 2 good ways to look at this group of quarterbacks as a whole.
So actually, it was funny. I was actually going to point out how much we actually agreed.
We did.
And I had no idea what your list was. You had no idea what mine was. And I'm actually impressed, like how much we actually
had like 3 right on.
Right? Yeah, I thought that was interesting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next week. I'm Adam Carricker. He is Rhett Lewis. This is the Big Ten Show. Bleav in the Big Ten. We'll see you next time.